Hello! I was wondering if I might trouble you for a cup of strong black coffee, and in the process engage you with an anecdote of no small amusement.
Hello, and welcome to J-Dub forgetting that there's a show after the intro.
Is there?
Don't pick good music for your intros, folks. That's your pro podcast tip of the day.
What these people do not understand is that while this song is playing, there is a secret goblin version being sung very enthusiastically behind the scenes.
Oh yeah, it's like Bohemian Rhapsody. You sing all the parts.
It's a vibe.
Yeah, it's all the parts or nothing.
Every listening session to Bohemian Rhapsody is itself a performance.
Exactly.
And that's it.
Exactly.
Well, calm your...
an early Justin in the chat. Thank you for being patient. Yes, we are at a new time. It worked for everybody involved and also just was more convenient. And so 9:30 it is. We be here and we be talking about Lord of the Rings. And so if you missed last week's coming in late to the game, that is the takeover for the remainder of the year, for the month. A Star Wars podcast not talking about Star Wars.
And not talking about Christmas, bah humbug.
Who's ever heard of that? And so
this is not a festive sweater, this is a goose sweater.
Exactly. And so everybody messes with me because this is 70-hour work week, John. Just putting that out there. So last week I have an excuse. I am overworked and underpaid, and I was like off my rocker. Okay,
take a sip of my spicy beverage.
I don't want any of that to come back against me. I promise. I love Lord of the Rings, and I know what I'm talking about sometimes.
Did this movie improve your opinion on Elijah Wood?
No.
Do you think anything can improve your opinion?
Meeting him.
I don't know about that.
So one day we'll see. So if you don't know what that's all about, you have to listen to the last week's episode and laugh at my trauma.
It's so funny.
But as for this week, we are continuing. So we started off, you obviously start where it all begins with the joining and the Fellowship of the Ring. And that only lasts for one movie. And then we're onward into the big climactic middle of the trilogy of sorts. That's not a trilogy, but is a trilogy.
It's a sextology.
Tolkien was a mad lad and doing some great things. Yes, I want to meet Elijah Wood so I can punch him in the face. That's on the internet now.
Still don't understand why you hate that man so much.
I don't either, but it is what it is. And it's about time we get our guests in here. So let me just throw some jingly cheap keys at the kids here.
If you want to turn the channel, go ahead, fool. Turn the channel. If you want to learn something about God, shut your mouth and listen to me for a minute.
Shut your mouth and listen to me for a minute.
That is live footage of Andy leading up to this podcast.
It's true. I am so excited for Andy to be loosed on this podcast.
And so is Andy, the lovely Andy, pre-gaming,
gorgeous Andy,
and ready and raring all week for this one. Excited to have you here, and of course, Big Mike returning.
Big Mike.
Andy and Mike, friends of the show. First time together?
Yes.
No.
Wait a minute. I don't remember.
We want another show together.
I will believe you because I'm not in my right mind, and you're smarter than me.
I've been here a handful of times. I haven't caught up to my nemesis yet, but we're getting closer and closer.
Yes, closer to stealing Michael's punch card for guest appearances. Yes, and quick zoom on the newest addition to the herd lineup. First and hopefully not only, if they're not embarrassed to be seen with us.
I don't blame you.
The Dr. Davor of A Larger View Pod. Welcome, sir.
Yes.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be on here and talking about, I'll just plant the flag now, the best Lord of the Rings movie.
Oh, starting out strong. I like it.
Mhm.
I like it. You'll fit in around here. So
You know what?
last call. Anybody
Yeah.
want out? Anybody want out? Okay, we're in
I want
this.
out. Can I get out?
No.
Oh. Okay, I'll stay.
Okay. So yeah, starting out the gate strong. I mentioned that last week. Actually, I think that Two Towers is often. I think it's the Empire Strikes Back of the trilogy. You know, it's the one that just gets everything in there, and I think that's what really resonates with a lot of people.
It is slam jam packed.
Yeah, and I think it's got something for everyone in this one, especially. Lord of the Rings, much like Star Wars, kind of fits in several different categories. It's definitely high fantasy, but it's got humor. It's got romance. If you call long shots of
you know what,
Liv Tyler staring at the camera.
I do call what happens between Frodo and Sam romance. Thank you.
There you go. There's romance to be had in these movies, but just not where you think. And I think that's why Andy's here and excited. Andy, Mike, to you as well. Are you here because it's your favorite, or that this one was just the most fun to talk about?
You invited me.
It's true.
No.
I'm here because I like my friends.
Mike's standards are low. If you invite him, he'll come.
It probably is my favorite out of the three.
For sure.
Yeah. So
nice. Andy.
It's my least favorite.
What?
Oh.
Okay.
Andy being
you gave
controversial
me
here.
my pick. You came to me and you said, Andy, you're the most important guest. You can have your pick of any Lord of the Rings movie. We bow to your Tolkien opinion. And I told you, I was like, I'm torn. Two Towers is my favorite book, but my least favorite of the movies. And Fellowship is my favorite of the movies. And you said, well, you should do Fellowship. And I said, give me Two Towers, coach. Put me into Two Towers.
I have a lot to say.
Apparently. And that's good. So is it one of those situations where, like, I often say, like, you know, if you're going to ask me to rank a Star Wars, something's going to unfortunately end up on the bottom, but that doesn't mean it is bottom material, if that makes sense.
Put that on a shirt.
It's more of a situation where it's just a matter of, if I've got to pick a 1, 2, 3, this is number 3.
It's a power bottom. I think it's a great movie. I think it does a great job. The reason why I wanted to do it is because I think it makes the boldest choices in straying from Tolkien's original vision.
Yes.
And at the same time, I think it fails as a movie for not going far enough. So it's still a great movie, but I think the spots where it could be better are in that it was really brave in certain respects and then not brave enough in others.
Ooh, that's interesting. And so, yeah, like I discovered something, because my research for a lot of this stuff is I'll watch something.
That's true. You do enjoy being a passive consumer.
That's the benefit to a lot of the things we love, where it's just like, oh, I'm going to talk about a Star Wars. Let me go watch a Star Wars. You know, it's the most fun research you can do. And so it definitely started with watching these movies for effectively the first time leading up to this series. And so only then, just in time for the episode, do I do my reading and research and everything. And looking into it, there was only supposed to be 2 movies. There was only supposed to be 2 movies originally when things got greenlit for Lord of the Rings to be a thing, the adaptation.
I have a word next to me.
Yes, Boba requested to be involved. And so Two Towers had the least originally, because half of it was going to fit in the first film and half of it was going to fit in the last film.
He is like trying to climb into my lap right now.
He's got more controversial opinions about this movie than Andy does. And so when you say things like it had some of the boldest choices, it did, because they basically, when it changed hands into New Line Cinema, they had to make a whole new movie they weren't expecting to make for this one. And I think I'm going to leave it up to the panel that probably knows more than me.
Fair.
Like, is this the most different from the source material of the three?
In my opinion, yes. So there's moments cut from Fellowship and Return of the King that I think maybe some diehard fans might have been annoyed about, but most fans understanding it's an adaptation, you have to cut some stuff, they're massive books, would get. But Two Towers moves certain events around, like Shelob is supposed to be in the Two Towers and Boromir's death is supposed to be in the Two Towers, and those are both in different movies. Mm-hmm. And then I think there's a lot of changes, but I think the biggest has got to be the elves showing up at Helm's Deep is a massive change. Mm-hmm. Eomer is supposed to be there. The Riders of Rohirrim are supposed to be there. There are no elves there, and I think Jackson having this like beautiful sacrifice where these 2,000 elves give up heaven, they give up immortality to die for the world of men is like a really big departure.
I didn't actually catch that was like the gravitas of that situation, because like the elves are leaving Middle Earth or whatever they call it there in the books, right? So they're supposed to
they're outie. They're going.
They're outie 5.
They are manually pushing the rapture button, basically. And I didn't catch that this gaggle of elves that fights at Helm's Deep like gave that up. I mean, I saw that they died for sure. Mm-hmm. But wow.
Yeah, because elves don't die unless they're killed, basically.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I killed him dead. Like
lobsters, yeah.
But so if you don't kill...
Exactly like lobsters.
Okay, I'm
wait, what?
Yes,
what is that?
Okay. So, fun facts with Boop. The lobsters live to be like hundreds of years old.
We don't know how old they live.
Exactly, because we keep eating
in
them.
ideal conditions.
What?
So, baby, I have so many facts
just
about
like
lobsters.
Elves. Unless you kill and eat an elf, you have no idea how old it could get.
What do you... Okay. We're on the same page.
I don't know if you have to eat them, but okay.
What do you think they taste
Listen to
like?
Good Neighbors.
Oh my gosh. Yes, please go listen. I implore all of you, if you love our hijinks, and if you love Andy.
Me too.
So that brings a whole new level of, and that's the thing. It's like, I mentioned it offhand, but like, I really am, and Justin's in the chat, he can confirm, like, this was effectively watching it for the first time for me. And so like little things like that I don't know about the deep lore, or that I don't get because of paragraphs of text.
And there are paragraphs.
Just flew past me.
So it's the thing with Arwen is that she's a half elf, so she can choose to become mortal or stay an elf, which is why Elrond is like, you got to dump this dirty man and find yourself a nice elf twink, because if you choose to become mortal, you're gonna die.
Yeah, that's the thing.
She's half elf.
Yeah, it's not really well talked. It's going to come up in Return of the King more.
Yes.
Okay, so I made promises at the beginning of this episode that I wasn't going to embarrass myself, and I apologized for last week and said it was uncharacteristic, but now we are finding out it is in fact characteristic, and I don't know squat.
Listen, you don't know everything, and that's okay.
That's exactly.
That's why we have Andy.
Yeah. That's why we have a lovely panel here. So I started last week's with it. I have to start this week's before we like really dive into the Two Towers material.
Yes.
Like, what's the deal with your love of Lord of the Rings? Where did it kind of come from? Was it a sort of self-discovery moment? Was it something passed on to you? Was it going to see these movies? Because we landed pretty close to the premiere date of Two Towers. So this all came because I saw that Two Towers was turning 20 years old. And so it actually released on the 5th of December in 2002. And we're only 4 days behind.
That I'm aging.
And yes, we're all getting older. I'm sorry about that. But so did you see this 20 years ago and you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I need to know more. Where did it kind of start? I'll go to Davor first.
I did not see it in theaters. Like with so many other pop culture trends, I was late to it. I don't remember when I saw the movies. It was definitely after Return of the King was in theaters. So it was maybe mid to late aughts, I would say. I probably finally watched them. And when I watched them, I hadn't read the books. So I was my exposure to the world, that was kind of my gateway, was the movies. And I mean, by that point, there were already a lot of kind of sci-fi sort of fantasy things that I was already into, whether it was Star Wars. I had already been reading like the Harry Potter books. I'd been into other things. So in a lot of ways it kind of fit into those interests that I already had. So like getting into, getting immersed into another kind of fantasy world was really easy to do, particularly with the films. They're just so visually wonderful.
For sure. And I didn't realize until I'm sure I've realized, but not until you mentioned it. It kind of pinged like, yeah, we had the prequels happening. We had this happening. We had Harry Potter. We had a lot of big things.
There's a buffet for nerds for a long time.
Yeah. That's kind of crazy that was all happening at once. And it was all 20 some odd years ago.
And the early Marvel films. Pre-MCU.
That's right, yeah, because like Hulk, the Spider-Man's,
Ghost
Blade.
Rider.
We would not have an MCU without Blade
Rider.
for sure.
Say Ghost Rider.
That is there too, yes, and the spite of my life.
Wild West, The Mummy.
Okay,
also
so
true.
Extraordinary Gentleman. We can
yes.
LXG.
LXG.
That movie got such a bad rap, man. Van Helsing, which fun fact, I totally asked a question and then squirrel moment happened again. But bringing up Van Helsing. So Weta Digital, who did the effects for this, went on to do Van Helsing and several other movies.
And David Wentham, who is Faramir, is also in Van Helsing.
Van Helsing, yes.
He's the friar or the priest,
and
whatever.
He can curse however much he wants.
Yes. So idiots out there actually think that he was the werewolf guy from Harry Potter, and those idiots are wrong. He was in Van Helsing.
What idiots?
Their name starts with J and ends with on. Okay, so I mixed up my peoples for a moment. Okay,
you did. But that's okay, because you know the difference between Orlando Bloom and Luke Evans, right?
No.
All right, we're not going to talk about that. Michael.
Yes.
Where did your love of Lord of the Rings start?
So I've never read the books. I read The Hobbit like when I was young and really enjoyed that. And so when this came out, it just like, just made sense to go see it. And I did, and because I remember when we saw Fellowship, we were like right around Christmas, the movie theater was packed. We ended up sitting on front row, so you're sitting there leaning back trying to see it, trying to watch it. And the really funny thing is at the end of the Fellowship, they get in the boat, they're going across, and my mom's like, "Well, that's not a very good ending," and I'm like, there's 2 more movies to come.
Yeah, that sounds like your mom.
I do remember a lot of my friends being mad about the ending of Fellowship because they were like, he didn't destroy the ring.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like, so.
I like that's something because, when these came out, it was definitely long enough after that I think maybe a lot of the fascination had kind of strayed away, and so I guess you could go. I mean, I did. A lot of people, it seems, went in blind to these, and I guess you could make those, misconceptions, though. Have those misunderstandings of what's happening here. You hear, oh, he's got to destroy the ring, and you're used to. I mean, because that wasn't really a huge thing until the 2000s. Trilogies, it was odd. It was out of the ordinary. Now we can't imagine getting just one of something in film or in series or in books even. It's just like, no, this has to lead to 20 more just like it, right? So I can't be too angry or I can't judge them too much for not understanding.
It's not going to do anything.
I will say that watching like nerd stuff with moms is a lot of fun.
It is.
Because the last time we watched anything with my other mother, as I call her, we were watching Attack of the Clones, another 2002 classic. And about halfway through, they pause it and look at me, and they're like, "All right, you gotta help me out here. How does this guy's hair keep going from long to short to long to short? Like every time I look up, his hair is a different length." And I'm like, "What are you talking
Mom,
about?"
those are two different characters.
So she couldn't tell Anakin apart from Obi-Wan.
Love it.
They
both wear robes.
exactly alike.
Love it.
Amazing.
So it's safe to say they didn't get Star Wars.
You keep shaving.
But like walking out of a Star Wars and asking them, "What do you think?" is so
It's so much
fascinating.
fun.
Oh my gosh.
I really feel like I need to read the books now because Andy just like put me onto something. I said, I've never read it, so I didn't realize that the elves weren't actually there, you know, at that battle, which to me is sad because when it comes to that movie, that is one of my favorite parts of that movie is
for sure.
watching those elves come up and like, you know, when I would play D&D way back, I always picked an elf character. So, you know, totally opposite of me, tall, skinny, good looking. And, you know, it's like
I'm right there with
short,
you.
Fat, and so
I pick a ranger every time, and I am not athletic at all. So, you know, my version of hardcore parkour is like getting up off the couch and like hearing my knee pop.
I love that idea though.
Like a squat,
like a
athletic
squat ranger with like so many stats, like skill dumping into sneak and acrobatics. Like that is a great idea, and I want to see that realized.
Justin, this was only because I had a rat tail, and she couldn't understand the concept of why you would choose to do that to a young Padawan.
It was the 90s. That's all you need to know.
Right? Like, you know, we all know someone or were someone who had a rat tail, okay?
I'm pretty sure Justin had a rat tail at one point.
Justin had hair?
Yes, he did.
Anyway.
Red hair.
Love you, buddy. So like I mentioned earlier too, you know, bouncing off of what Andy had started off with, like, I don't know if I'm the only one that would ever have trouble. I also don't know why they would go the angle of making a trilogy into 2 movies, because although technically it's a trilogy, it is one long book released in volumes, and so it seems like the most appropriate thing to 1, 2, 3 it. I couldn't quite imagine this happening any differently, and I think just because of how much does still get in here, even if it's tweaked and changed and whatnot from the original source material. Of the 3, there's so much in each of them that it's hard to see that getting into what would probably be about 5 hours between 2 movies. I mean, at this point, like, why watch anything other than the extended editions too? But
yeah, honestly.
But yeah, so a lot changed for this, and getting us where we were. Actually, even the elves showing up was supposed to be even weirder because dang it,
I have words to say about this.
I was gonna
I have things to say about this.
I was gonna say Strider.
Let me off the hook, John.
It is Strider.
It is Strider.
You did it.
Strider's girlfriend was supposed to be there.
Yes.
And so that was interesting. I don't know if that's what you were thinking of, Andy.
Let me off the hook.
Go for it.
Go, babe, go.
So, I mentioned last week in the chat that I had issue with the casting for these movies. And I think the black mark on these movies is the lack of female and POC representation in them.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Specifically, these movies could not have been made without the indigenous people of New Zealand. They couldn't have done it. They needed to be filmed in New Zealand. New Zealand is just as much a character as anything else in these movies. And so you're filming on their land. The Maori people were cast as Orokai. They were cast as orcs. They did a ton of stuff behind the scenes. They were prop makers. They were set makers. They were costume people. They were makeup people.
They were the special effects company.
Yes,
and they were told, you can be in these movies, but we can't see you. And that sucks.
Yeah.
And these movies are so incredibly white. And it was inappropriate back in 2002. It was talked about in 2002 as an issue with these movies. That has aged even worse now. And I genuinely think you could have made any main character a person of color and it wouldn't have changed anything. I also think you could have gender bent anyone in the Fellowship except for Aragorn and Boromir, personally. I think those are the only two that, like, their story kind of requires them to be male. I think that's important to their dynamic and their arcs. But if Frodo was a girl, if Merry and Pippin were girls, if Legolas is already so femme. Like, if Legolas was a girl,
he's almost there.
Would anything have been different? I don't think so.
No.
I genuinely don't think it would have changed any of their arcs, any of their relationships at all. So that is a huge, for me, like, sticking point with the casting. So when I talk about how The Two Towers is great, in my opinion, because it goes furthest from, like, what Tolkien originally wrote, I think that was, like, cool and interesting and exciting. If I want to read Tolkien's vision, I can just go pick up the books. If I want to watch something different, I can watch the movies. I think it was really badass that Arwen was with Haldir to lead the 2,000 elves to Helm's Deep. And I think it was fucking badass that she fought in the battle and they filmed it. And you can find pictures of her killing Orokai side by side with Aragorn, and that it's really hot. And for them to cut it because they, one, were worried it would have upset fans, and two, they thought it would take away from Eowyn's moment in Return of the King. I think it's dumb. I think it was just a bad decision to cut.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, considering everything else, because there's literally bullet points of things that were changed for this. It seems like a weird place to draw a line for sure. Especially since they couldn't go back and change the fact that the elves were there. Like, part of the whole reason they're there, and there's, like, different things they did do different in pickups, filmed a little differently or edited differently. But there's certain things that were done for that inclusion, and to, like, do all that and then be like, maybe let's, save the dude bros.
This is too much woman. Need to dial it back.
Right.
Well, so, like, the other reason why I really wanted to talk about this movie is I think this movie is, out of the three, like, one of the most, like, heated in terms of queer subtext. And a big reason why these books and these movies are so queer is because you have a bunch of attractive men hanging out talking about how important they are to each other, and you have no women with important speaking lines. And so, like, people are going to ship anything. Like, we've known that since Sherlock Holmes in the 20s. Like, people are going to ship. People like to ship. And if you give them a cast of all men, they're going to start shipping the men. So, like, if you had Arwen there doing something important and, like, sharing screen time and chemistry with Viggo, like, maybe people wouldn't be shipping him with Legolas so much in this movie. Maybe people wouldn't be shipping him with, like, freaking, like, everyone ships everyone in the Fellowship.
Literally,
Like,
yeah,
true.
right.
he and Boromir have like a ton of chemistry. He was wearing Boromir's clothes for the rest of the fucking movies. Like, sorry, I don't know if I can drop the F word.
You're fine, hon.
But like, yeah, maybe if you had let his girlfriend do something and like be part of the story in a meaningful way, people wouldn't be shipping him with Boromir and Legolas in the Two Towers and the Fellowship. But
Well, and that's the thing, is they turn in on so much chemistry on this one, because like from Boromir's death ending Fellowship, the big climax that they moved from 2 to 1, it forks off into 3 different plots, and the whole point is to like turn inward on those relationship building. So you get Sam and Frodo, you get Merry, Pippin, and eventually Treebeard, and then you've got the 3 big ones of Gimli, Legolas, and Aragorn. And it's like, yeah, when you're building all that chemistry, you know, you can add in whatever you want, and that's one of the things. So like when you're talking about, like, it's really hard to continue to see yourself in someone when it's cast for you, if that makes sense. Like when you read something, you can insert yourself no matter what, no matter if you're the gender or the race or the sexuality of someone. You can be like, hey, I think this is me. I feel seen in this. I want to be this.
Yeah.
As soon as it's cast, it's kind of solidifying. And that's not to say that, like, please, like, you know, still see yourself in things. Like,
I see myself in Yaskir, yes.
Yes.
You're a little too enthusiastic about that.
It's because I too grunt and say single expletives throughout the day.
And I am often screaming and dancing.
But like, you know, put yourself in the shoes, even if it's cast. If you want to be Obi-Wan and you look nothing like Ewan McGregor, you know, have at it. You know, if you want to see yourself, and I think part of this for me is fueled because there's just this kind of racist tirade going on right now about Peter Parker is Spider-Man, and how somehow that dethrones Miles Morales and devalues his spiderhood.
Spider-Man is Spider-Man.
Yeah, Spider-Man is
Spider-Man.
Who it is. Like
Miles Morales is Spider-Man.
Stanley's whole thing was that anybody can be Spider-Man.
Exactly.
Anybody can see themselves.
The entire point of
Yes. No, that's absolutely the point. And so, you know, when it's cast as you know, a bunch of white guys, like you kind of like, oh, I guess only, you know, white guys can be Aragorn or Legolas or elves or you know, whatever. And that's why representation matters.
Yeah.
And so like once it's cast, it can feel defeating, but like you still have to find what represents and what speaks to you in it. Andy, you did a really lovely thread on Twitter before this. And what I love is that you don't hold that your perspective is the perspective so much. I like the line about backing into hell, because that's absolutely how I want to go. I want to go out where it's just like I'm living my truth. I think the Phantom Menace is the best Star Wars, and I will die on that hill.
You'll die correct.
Have your perspective. If you see yourself in these characters or in these roles, step in and enjoy and have your point of view, if that makes sense.
People like to argue historical accuracy, and like people are arguing that with Rings of Power, with, you know, casting people of color in it. And I know that argument's bullshit. Sorry. Because they were really quiet about the fact that the ships had wheels, or that people were wearing armor on ships, or that certain types of bows were being used. Like, none of that stuff existed back then. Like, if we're talking medieval fantasy, the ship's wheel was not invented until the early 1700s. So, like, if you want to argue historical accuracy, Black people existed in the Middle Ages. Ship's wheels didn't. Why are you only pissed off about the fact that there's Black elves? Like, shut up. You're a loser and you're wrong. And your thinly veiled argument of historical accuracy does not shield you from the very real criticism that you're a blanking racist.
Well, and that's the thing, because unfortunately with Ring of Power coming out and the cast getting more colorful and more representative, it's made people upset. And you know, I guess this is all being said for the folks that just, not that turning your brain off and watching things is necessarily bad, but sometimes you've got to think outside your box. And whereas seeing nothing wrong with the casting of Lord of the Rings isn't necessarily bad, it does speak to someone else, not like you, if that makes sense. And so at the same time, when Ring of Power came out and didn't look the same, it looked like a lot of people, that spoke to a lot of people, if not you. And why it upsets those people is really the big question. And I think we kind of all know the reason for it.
It's one of those things, like, ask yourself, why am I upset about this? And then maybe learn something about yourself. Like, question everything, find the truth in the process. Like, that is the nerd herder way.
So there's your soapbox for the night.
No, there's more.
There's probably more, but that's definitely the big one. I will say I do enjoy that, especially with taking off with great female roles, extends into the next one. But it's one of those things where it only gets better with time as more stories are told and everything. And so having these 3 20-year-old movies near and dear to our hearts is great and well, but things should grow and things should progress. And I'm glad to see that Lord of the Rings that this lore in this world
there's always improvements that could be made.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And so
segue.
Well, not really, because I mean, we never have a plot and a point.
No.
We just find ourselves talking about what we like with people we like. And so
here's a segue for you.
Uh-oh.
A question for the why are you concerned?
No. Well, this could go one of 2 ways, but have at it.
A question for the panel.
Sure.
Did you know that on the scene that they filmed on the hilltop, when Viggo Mortensen kicks the helmet, he broke his toe? Did you know that?
I was waiting when that was going to happen. I just mean, who's going to bring it up?
Yes, we've all seen that Screen Rant video, that Watch Mojo video.
No.
We all watched the commentary.
Exactly. That's the right way to watch the movies. Is you do extended edition, you do cast commentary.
The commentary is so good for these movies, and the special features and behind the scenes are so good for these movies.
When I watch them again, I promise I will check that out.
Catch me saying all of the lines with the cast members as they're saying them, because that was exclusively how I watched these movies growing up.
Aww.
Yeah, I'm a nerd. I didn't have friends.
Growing up, I only ever watched the cast commentaries when I was like, I had bad bouts of insomnia. Yes. And so when I would be up all night and I'd watched my small DVD shelf of movies we never returned to Blockbuster, it's like, oh, I've already watched Transformers 2 times this week. Why don't I watch it with commentary?
Yeah.
And it's just like, that's the only time that I'd mix it up. And so the internet was young. Wikipedia wasn't the big empire that it was, or that it is now. And so we had to get our nerd facts from commentaries. Yes.
Or you could do it the Vincent Child way, where you just randomly cycle through the languages available and just watch The Emperor's New Groove in French for a little while. We were bored. Didn't have much to do.
We talked a bit about the cast last week. We do get some additions here. And so I wanted to point out some of my favorite new additions to the cast. And we can go backwards if you feel near and dear to any of the Fellowship characters. Sam, Frodo, any of those is your favorites and everything. But one of my favorites is actually Carl Urban, showing up in this.
Mhm.
Because forever he was this to me, because like I didn't know much, and if you I still don't.
You said it for me.
I didn't know much about Lord of the Rings, and you can listen to last week's, but I do remember this guy, and I think it was not until probably Star Trek that I was just like, have you ever had that moment where you're just like, you know this person, this actor,
Yeah.
whatever,
Mhm.
and you're just like, where have I seen them? Who are they? And so it drove me mad until I realized that this was Carl Urban in that brief bit of Lord of the Rings, the Two Towers I got to see as a kid. That's one of the biggest things that stuck with me was
hunky bearded horseman.
Yes. I was just like, yeah, that's awesome. And so I don't know.
He's a different actor than Orlando Bloom. He is still blonde.
I know. I know that.
Okay.
I know that
I'm
now.
Just making sure.
Yes. Okay.
I know you get confused.
Oh my gosh. So I am not good with the Middle Earthies. And so pronouncing his name, I am not good at.
Éomer?
Aorn?
Éomer.
Éomer?
Éomer.
Éomer.
Yes.
Éomer. Any Éomer fans here besides me?
Yes. Big fan.
I hope so.
My husband is obsessed with Carl Urban. So if you listen to Ending Pending, I'm sure you've heard him talk about Carl Urban on there.
He has great taste.
He does. He does have great taste.
He does.
But I love Amer in the books, and so he's a slightly smaller role in the movies, but he's fantastic.
I love him a lot.
And
I think he's got that urbanese about him, something that he brings to it.
There's no one in this cast that I could point my finger at and be like, they should recast this person as someone else. Like, this entire cast is amazing. So even though I ranted about how this cast is too white, like there's no one who's not pulling their weight and doing a great job. It's just
they're talented white people.
Yeah, it's just a whole lot of white people.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like recognizing it's not as good as it could be doesn't take away from it being meaningful or good as is. It's just one of those things where it's just like, hey, next time we do this, can we do it a little differently? And that's what we're doing.
They're all fantastic, and they all like bring their A game to these movies.
Absolutely. And so we get this is going to be controversial. I do love me a Shawnee Beanie. I loved the brief character that was Boromir.
National treasure.
But I really like Faramir.
Faramir. And also,
is this
you did
what
not
it's
acknowledge my joke. That was very good.
I didn't hear your joke.
After you said Shawnee Beanie, and I said he was a national treasure.
Oh, he's in National Treasure.
He doesn't die.
The first one,
Yeah, he gets taken prisoner.
That's why it's a good movie.
That's not
Sean
how.
Does not die.
Wait a minute. I thought clearly it had to be in his contract. He has to die if he's in your film. Like
his death is the American justice system.
Oh no!
There you go. He's never going to see sunlight
Which is
again.
Honestly worse.
He's being sent to Guantanamo Bay.
Guantanamo?
What were you saying?
He can hang out with Sean Connery at Gitmo. Or is that Alcatraz?
It's Alcatraz.
Did you know that Alcatraz means pelican in Spanish?
I did. Thank you.
Just like making sure.
Anyway, so I don't know if it's controversial to like Faramir more than Boromir. But
no,
I do.
It's not. As long as you're not a Denethor fanboy.
Is that a thing?
Boromir is my favorite character. His sword is hanging on my wall right over there.
Ooh.
Admirable.
Yes.
Nice. Well, I guess since we kind of skipped over the fellowship talk, since that was mostly last week, I don't know, Mike and Davor, if your favorite characters in the fellowship or any one of the new characters kind of introduced more in this, which Theoden, you got Wormtongue, right? That's Brad Dourif.
Mm-hmm.
Are any of these big favorites for either of you guys?
I mean, You talk about the the kind of splitting of the plots and getting to see all the different dynamics within the little groups that we get. I mean, I would say probably my favorite of those, and particularly like within the Two Towers, is probably the Gimli, Legolas, Aragorn of it all. Like, it's just really good, even just from the very opening scene when you get to see him running through the fields, and then there's Gimli trotting back. He's like trying to keep up.
Yes.
Like, I just love the three of them just together is wonderful.
The threesome of them is great. Yeah.
Cuddling for
The
warmth,
chemistry is kind of amazing, and I mean, yeah, acting and all that, but like, I like to think they had a lot of fun together because it feels
They had to.
way too genuine to be all the job, if that makes sense. It definitely feels like Hayden and Ewan. It wasn't just, oh, we're told we work together. It like they're friends. They're friends, and they're adorable. And so I absolutely felt that a lot here, especially with all the back and forth with Legolas and Gimli. I think
The flirting, yeah.
like some of it feels like it. If we're keeping like a bar chart of like my favorites, it fluctuated a lot throughout this movie. I mentioned Samwise last week and whatnot, and Samwise Stan, where is it?
Where is it?
Samwise Stan Josh in the chat there. But this one, because everybody gets so much attention, so many times to shine, so many times to be fun and cool. It's just like, oh, I like them. Oh no, now I like them. It's really nice to have such a full likable cast like that. So, Mike, haven't mentioned your favorite yet?
No, I did. I told you I've always been an elf fan, so you gotta know who mine is.
Oh yes.
The concept of elves is a good answer.
It's so and the play between the two of them, like I rewatched the extended version of Two Towers today, and the two of them talking about 29, 30, counting how many they killed.
Yeah.
And then you've got this one part where Gimli's sitting on one of the orcs or whatever, and he's, they're talking about, I think Legolas says he had killed 42, and Gimli's like, well, I've killed 43. And all of a sudden he shoots the orc, and he's like, well, he was twitching,
Right.
I've got my axe in his nervous.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly right. So that, I mean, the play between the two of them, and I think one of my favorite parts is when they're right before the battle starts, and he's like standing there trying to see over the wall.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he's like,
would you like a box?
Tell me what's happening. And he's like, well, shall I describe it to you, or shall I get you a box?
Yes.
And I'm like, just their play between, it was just awesome to me.
It's so good. It's so good. And then and for it to be so readable, considering how they had to shoot so much of what they did together. So many times where they're probably not even in the same shot, in film, where because of the magic that went on, to still be able to get that chemistry was pretty awesome.
I do think that's another issue with these movies, is that plenty of little people have talked about how certain roles feel objectifying to them, but at the same time you have 5 roles in 3 major Hollywood movies that are going to win more Oscars than God and are going to be talked about 20 years later on a podcast. And could that not have catapulted 5 little people actors to household names?
For
so
sure.
I am not a little person. I cannot speak to their opinions. I do know that schools of thought are divided on it, but it is I do think it's worth mentioning that Peter Dinklage is a household name because of Game of Thrones. And he has gotten movie after movie, and he has gotten to humanize characters that could have been tokenism. And it John Rhys Davies is amazing. The 4 Hobbits are amazing.
He's
it's not to
6
take
foot
away
something.
from that. He's the
like
tallest.
6'5".
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the tallest. He also voices Treebeard and does a phenomenal job.
I was gonna
He
say they
does.
literally could have just thrown
But-
some moss on him and be like, "Be a tree." Like,
But it does feel like a shame to me. And like Willow, I think, is a great example of a fantasy role that went to a little person that is not tokenism.
Yeah.
yeah.
So
absolutely.
like I think they could have done it. But not to be a downer and keep bringing up problems.
No.
Because again, all these actors
Yeah.
do incredible and all the characters are amazing. It's just I don't know. There's stuff that like I think is worth talking about that could have been handled differently.
Yeah, and I don't think there's anything wrong with bringing that perspective into conversations like this. Like, you don't think about it until it's brought up, and that's an improvement that can be made in the future. Do I think that any studios are listening to our podcast? No,
If so,
but the conversation is there.
pay us. No.
Good God, pay us.
As I'm housing mead, get Viking Blood to sponsor the pod. 'Cause that's what I've been drinking. This whole
I
time.
love the name already.
Already.
Davor's
Also-
sponsored by water, I'm pretty sure.
Do you think that God has any Academy Awards?
I hope not, because I don't think he's into it.
There's no God.
Did
around
Passion of the
Academy.
Christ win anything?
What's
I
that?
think.
Did
I think
Passion
it
of the
did.
Christ win anything?
I think
sure
it won
it
like
did.
Best Picture.
I'm
We know
sure
Kirk
it did.
Cameron's movies haven't won jack shit.
Well, that's because it's Kirk Cameron.
Yeah.
God bless them.
Can we talk about the gay stuff?
Please, let's talk about the gay stuff.
Before Andy's ADHD kicks in.
Oh, wait. Before, well, a little. Need to mention that this was my first Brad Dourif experience in this movie. Was
Really?
as Wormtongue. You gotta think, baby, I was not a horror movie person until
Oh yeah, that's
later
true.
in life. And like, he is absolutely
Greasy.
putting his
He's
entire-
very wet.
Brad Dourif into this role. Like he is greasy and he is having an incredible time, and I love that for him. And yeah, he, like everything else, does a fantastic job. That's all I wanted to say.
Oh yeah, he's a good little gremlin of a man, for
He is.
sure.
He really is.
And yes, so turning it over now to Andy's pulpit.
Please.
Lord of the Rings is gay. It just is. It's been part of like queer culture for a really long time. A lot of like annoying fanboys will be like, "Oh, you just want to make everything gay nowadays," and it's like, dude,
The source material.
gays were grabbing this when it was being written and talking about how gay it was. Like, this is not a new perspective to have a queer reading of The Lord of the Rings, let alone a queer interpretation of the Jackson trilogy. When these movies were coming out, late night talk show hosts were joking about how gay they were and how homoerotic they were. So like at the time that these were released, this was like being pointed out. It's not a new thing in 2022 to be like, Lord of the Rings seems kind of gay. And even if it wasn't, I don't think that it matters to now have like a queer reading on it. Like whether or not it was Jackson's intent or any of the actors' intent or Tolkien's intent, it doesn't, their intention or lack of intention doesn't take away from the queer reading. Like Rob Liefeld has never intended to make a queer superhero in his life. The man is a bigot and a homophobe, but he was also cursed by a witch for every character he makes to come out of the closet, because every single one of his characters is now queer, and he's very upset about it. That's the nature of comic books. Someone's going to write them after you. But that being said, we also know that quite a few of the actors were very intentional about the choices they made. Ian McKellen took Sam and Frodo aside and said, "Psst, these characters are very important to my people, and you need to not mess this up.
Yes.
So you need to hold hands and you need to make eye contact and you need to touch each other, even if it makes you uncomfortable, because it's important to the characters. And they said, yes, Sir Ian McKellen, we would die for you. So even if it
Same.
is awkward, we will look into each other's eyes and slowly caress each other's cheeks and talk about how much we love each other.
We don't do that enough. Anyway, go on.
So, like, we do know that, like, certain actors were very intentional with the choices they made, knowing full well how important a queer reading of the text was, because they talk about it in the commentary. But Sam and Frodo aside, who, like, I think it's unmistakable how gay they are, there are gay readings of other characters in these movies that I think are important. The entire, like, arc of Eowyn and Aragorn is him, like, shutting her down and being like, yo, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
And that does not help the queer reading of Aragorn and Legolas at all, especially with the lack of Arwen doing anything important in these movies.
Right. Like, no, I love another blonde. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And then the Legolas and Gimli of it all, like, don't get me wrong, like, having platonic male friendship is important, but you have platonic male friendship,
you have whatever that's going on
everywhere. Like that is the most common movie is platonic male friendship. We have like 30 MCU movies of platonic male friendships, and we have 11 Star Wars movies of platonic male friendship, and we have countless other action movies and World War II movies and cowboy movies of platonic male friendship. So, like, you have your pick of the litter, but, like, I don't know, Legolas and Gimli sailing off to the Undying Lands together.
They did do that.
They did do that, and
That's adorable.
It just feels like flirting. It just does. And I think a romantic reading of those characters is just as valid as a hetero reading of those characters. And like, having one reading doesn't take away from the other.
Exactly.
So, like, if you have a hetero reading of their relationship and their platonic male friendship means something to you because it makes you think of your friend from grade school or whatever, that's cool. But if I watch it and I'm like, I'm pretty sure they're boning,
pretty sure,
that doesn't take away from your platonic male friendship reading. And likewise, your reading, I might think it's unlikely, but that doesn't discount my reading.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big thing. And I mean, we kind of hit on it earlier too, of just like what we all come at what we like with stuff. And that's why you know, discussions within fandoms about things can be so volatile, is because it's kind of personal in a lot of ways. We see ourselves in some of these characters. We identify with some of the choices and situations, and we read things a certain way because of who we are. And so, yeah, when somebody's like, oh, I think it's this way, and that's not the way we think it is, you know, it's just like, oh, like, no, but this is so important to me. And it's like, I think we were even talking about this earlier this morning or recently about something else where it's just like you can have your perspective and your experience, and someone else can have a completely different one, and they can both be valid, and they can both come from the same place of love. There are bad takes out there for sure. Of anything. We've all talked about Star Wars theory.
I try not to.
So, like, when I say the historical reading has been important to, like, queer theory with Tolkien, like, I do think that's important because critics of queer readings will be like, this is a new thing from 2022. And it's like, no, this has historically been part of queer culture. Like, Tolkien has been integral to queer culture for a long time now. Do I think Tolkien intentionally wrote queer characters? I don't think we'll ever know that. I also don't think there's another way to read confirmed bachelor Bilbo Baggins other than queer. Just knowing how queer relationships were talked about at the time it was written and understanding, like, queer subtext, I don't think there's another way to read that character. So I would be shocked if it wasn't intentional, but there's no way to know Tolkien's intentions.
Sure.
And at the end of the day, when it comes to adaptation, I care about Tolkien's intentions in regards to themes. I care about his intentions in regards to like the romance of the like morality that he is portraying in this battle between good and evil. I care about his intentions in his anti-war and anti-capitalist and anti like technology. I find all of that interesting in his intentions. I don't care about his intentions in regards to relationships and representation because he wrote these books 100 years ago, and people 100 years ago were by and large kind of racist and homophobic and sexist. So like, yes, I care about Tolkien's intentions in regards to nature versus industry. I don't care about his intentions in the black people are the guys riding elephants and they're all evil. So like, when it comes to doing a new adaptation, if they ever do remake these movies, yeah, give me gay Frodo and Sam. And like, even if that wasn't what Tolkien intended when he wrote it, I don't really care. He's been dead a long time.
Well, and
what's he gonna do?
Exactly.
Some things are of the times and should stay of the times for sure. And things that are for everyone, everyone should be considered and included. I just think that matters. And the more strives that industries and films and series and properties we love can make towards making everyone feel included, I think is the most important thing.
If Legolas is gay, was he a bastion of male heterosexuality beforehand? I don't think so. Like,
no.
Like, when I say these movies are queer, like, look at all of these beautiful men who are elves. Like, are you kidding me? The like non-binary energy coming off of all of these elves is like so intense, and like the dwarves are just like a bunch of bears. Like come on. And the hobbits are all twinks. Like, these movies are so gay. They just are. And if we ever get another adaptation, it'd be cool if they like embraced a little bit of that somewhere. I'm not saying we need to see like some raunchy sex scenes or anything. Like, I don't need Brokeback Mountain Doom, but like, come on. Also, that was a Stephen Colbert joke from 2003. So
that is the funniest thing I have ever heard in my life. Oh my God.
Speaking of, and before they do adapt and change everything about what we love, and before Boba loses his mind, apparently.
He's been losing his mind since the day he was born.
As far as these films go, particularly this one we're talking about, what are some of your favorite moments? Something big and interesting to kind of start to wrap up the show with. I think we've all kind of mentioned Helm's Deep here or there. I don't know if that just is the thing, or if there's other moments or things that you all really, really like. Michael, if you wanna start it off, what are some of your favorite things in Two Towers?
A lot of it does take, I think, the battle at Helm's Deep, but Legolas coming down the chair on the stairs on the shield, looked like a surfboard. It seemed like he was shooting an arrow every step. It was, but that whole battle there, I really enjoy. Something that I have done myself before is when Samwise and they're sitting around the fire and he's got the rabbits or whatever, and he does that potatoes. That is something I say like around here. It's like that's a way I will say it sometimes just to be funny, but I don't know, but it's funny to me to just potatoes.
Even if no one asks, that's how you're supposed to say it. I'm just convinced. I love what these movies and the Hobbits did for food and like junkie eaters like myself. Yeah, right. It's just like, nah, man was not meant to live on bread alone. I'm sorry. Like, I need some potatoes. I need some 11sies and second breakfasts in my life. Let's normalize hobbit diets, people. Like, I'm all about that life. But yeah, I mentioned specifically, like, it's hard to see that Legolas stair surfing scene and not have it stick with you.
Yeah.
You know,
And the one where they come out the side where Gimli and Aragorn come
oh
out and
yes,
says, you're gonna have to toss me.
I love your exuberant Gimli impressions, Michael.
It's great.
Can I just say, I will be your Legolas next Halloween if you want to be my Gimli, because I'm like my hair will be that long. You can be Aragorn.
You
my hair will
promised
be that
me
long by now.
that we were going to be an FBI agent and a sheriff.
Okay, I've started to overcommit myself.
You
apparently,
multiple Halloween costumes.
I'm double booked, it seems. So I need 2 shindigs to have on Halloween.
We can have a Twin Peaks party as well as a Lord of the Rings party.
You should always have a Twin Peaks party.
You should.
I specifically sent that mic to Boop, like, as I'm watching it, because, like, you know, all I heard when he said that was like from the Fellowship, where the stairs are falling as the Balrog is chasing them and everything, and he's like, nobody tosses a dwarf, and makes the jump himself, and I was just like, hey, character growth.
That is growth.
They're bonding. It's lovely.
But we can't tell the elf.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You can't tell the boyfriend. Davor, some of your favorites, my good sir.
Well, you know, we were just talking about Sam, so, you know, kind of going off of that, I would say definitely his monologue at the end, where he pretty much just kind of gives the thesis of the franchise, essentially. And he talks about how the people and all the stories and how they could turn away and gave up and they never did and they stuck through it is just it's delivered really well, just as an acting performance, and then the way that it is put together, where kind of like cutting back among all these different scenes and things that are kind of happening simultaneously, it's done so well.
Absolutely. I feel like I need to play that for myself every morning getting out of bed. There's still good out there, Mr. Frodo. I think that was really the moment for me that did a lot of solidifying as, wow, like, I love this man. I love Samwise as a character, what he represents. The mouthpiece he kind of gets to be, like you mentioned, for the point of it all. Like, if you're enraptured by all of the events of the story, if you're wowed by the CGI, Samwise is there to remind you what you missed when you weren't paying attention, and really hitting the nuggets of, like, I guess the whole deeper meaning. And it's Sean Astin delivering it, so it's like, I'm gonna listen. You know, I like, he gets my attention every time.
You know, watching it again today, and I don't know why it didn't cross my mind, but he was really brave. I mean, you know, I mean, like, he stood up to, he would stand up to people to be as small as he was supposed to be. It was a lot, you know, I guess I just never looked at it like that, but he was really brave.
Frodo's descent into addiction and the, like, manipulation of Gollum, and, like, the gaslighting and the taking advantage of Frodo as Frodo is, like, falling deeper under the sway of the ring, and, like, Sam's steadfastness in just being the best person ever is just really, really beautiful. And you're so right, Davor. Like, that speech at the end just encapsulates the whole message of the franchise.
Absolutely. And yeah, I agree with you there with how many times I think of all of the hobbits, Samwise forgets he's a hobbit. The times he stands up to even Faramir, when it's just like, you've got to let us go. You've got, like, all, like, and that was what I jokingly hit on a lot with last week about, like, Samwise is so good, it makes me, like, more and more like at odds with Frodo. Not just because it's Elijah Wood, but it's also just like come on, dude, you got this amazing. Like if I had Samwise, I mean, you're the closest to Samwise I have.
Right.
Like you were.
I cannot carry you though.
No, but you are a huge reason I keep going. And it's just like,
Wow.
if you have someone like
Jeez.
that in your life, like, I don't know, I just feel like I wouldn't be flopping around like Frodo is half the time.
He does love a good flop, doesn't he?
You know, he does that. He does the eye rolly thing that like just has been gift to heck and is embarrassing.
True.
But it's just like, get your act together, Frodo. Come on.
Get it together, young man.
I know I'm very hard on Frodo and Elijah Wood. You know, I know.
I'm not going to leave you alone about this.
I know you won't.
Elijah Wood's one of my favorite actors.
Can I rapid fire some moments?
Please,
yeah,
please, please.
I was about to turn it over to you and the point of this podcast.
Aragorn opening the doors.
Yes.
It's just, oh boy.
Gives you the vapors.
Oh boy.
I want to enter every meeting like that.
Yeah.
What?
Boy.
I'm gonna have to have them install double doors for that though, but it'll be
I want to bring my attention to the scene where Theoden is leading the three hunters around Helm's Deep and pointing out the defenses.
Mhm.
And the planting and payoff is that during the battle, because we got a tour with the main characters, we know every location. You are never lost during the Battle of Helm's Deep. You know where every scene is taking place because we got a tour, crib style, by Theoden. And I want to point out how much of this movie takes place at night, and we can tell everything that's going on.
Mhm.
There is not a shot that is confusing during the Battle of Helm's Deep. For a very chaotic 40-minute battle, we know where everything is. We know where all the characters are. We can see every beat of action despite the rain and that it's at night. Amazing cinematography, amazing planning and payoff. Just very well done.
for sure.
And then the last scene I need to bring up, I'd be remiss if I didn't, is the scene cut for the theatrical release, but it's in the extended edition of Boromir, Faramir, and Denethor.
Yes.
That scene is vital to the arc of the franchise, and it should not have been cut. Not only does it kind of give perspective on why Boromir was susceptible to the ring more than other characters, it also sets up why Faramir is susceptible to it. Like, the stakes are raised with if Faramir is going to let Frodo and Sam go,
right?
Because we saw that scene, and it makes his, I mean, trigger warning suicide attempt like more understandable, because Faramir is attempting suicide in Return of the King with the charge on Osgiliath. We understand the motivation of that act of self-harm because of the scene with him, Boromir, and Denethor in the Two Towers. So it's an amazing scene. It's a beautiful scene. It's a tragic scene. Emotionally, it's important to me and one of my friends. We talk about that scene a lot. It's important to our friendship and our relationship. But like, Denethor sucks. Boromir and Faramir are great. The flaws and the mistakes they make are rooted in that scene and makes them feel more human and real. And I really love it. So those are the three moments that I wanted to talk about.
For sure. I saw tell that because I only watched the extended edition. So I when I saw that there was a scene that featured the father and Boromir. I wasn't too sure because it literally just says, "Oh, and one additional scene not in the theatrical release with blah blah blah." I wasn't sure like what exactly was and wasn't in there. I didn't realize. So none of that scene was in the theatrical release.
No.
What? That is so important.
I know.
It, by and large, I feel like the extended editions, while fun, are not better movies than the theatrical cuts. I think it was smart to cut certain stuff here and there. That scene is so important. That scene gives perspective to the Fellowship. It gives perspective to Return of the King, and it like raises the stakes of the Two Towers. So
absolutely
heartbreaking that it's not there.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, like I will say, so I love of new characters introduced, and because of their character, not just because they're Carl Urban, I like Faramir, and it's because it's such like I know that role of not being the favorite. I know that role of like going after someone's attention and affection and appreciation and not getting it and always being compared. And so seeing him, I was really invested and rooting for his choices and how it would play out. And so for me, for a serious answer, like I loved Faramir and like imagining not having that scene, like I'm sure there's a way maybe it could have cut together, but I just I can't see relating to him as much without having that like pile drived into my heart in that, you know.
Also, you keep
I know, because in my head so the way I'm doing the way my brain works with these, for anyone wondering the science, I like have to think and see the word in my head and then I say it.
God,
and so
that sounds exhausting.
So every time I say it, I'm reading it in my head, and so if it's ever different, it's because I'm reading it differently in my head.
Just think it's Faramir because he's fair-skinned.
I feel clever.
Thank you.
Or he's a ranger. He's far away.
Interesting. Or sort of like it's George Takei, like Toupee.
You can tell who's been in speech therapy.
Anyway, I don't know what I was doing. But
you were mentioning your favorite scenes.
So I will say I relate now so much to my mother watching Star Wars and to anyone who's ever felt like they don't understand
You're doing
stuff.
a good job.
Because it's just I can't remember a lot of things.
My mind is a blender. Neither do I.
Well, you start off though. What like your favorites? Your favorite moments of the Two Towers?
Every single scene with Merry and Pippin and Treebeard.
I thought every single tree.
Every single tree. All of them.
I love that answer more.
Look at the trees.
I thought for sure your favorite scene would have been, what about them? They're made of meat.
That is also a very good one. Back on the menu, boys.
Oh
my
gosh,
or
they
put
don't
his whole business in that line read.
I do love the personality of the orcs and whatnot that we do get here and there.
Sadly, they were overdubbed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, by British actors. Yeah,
unfortunate.
It's very sad.
Yeah, we gotta do better.
We do.
On the table, boys.
I would agree with. I mentioned last time that it's Mary that I like, right?
Yes, it is Mary that you like.
Mary.
Mary is the one that stands up to Treebeard.
Yeah, and so all of that, I cheated and mentioned it last week, but all of that's here.
I mean, it's one of those things like that whole scene where he's yelling at Treebeard. It feels like trying to talk to your parents sometimes, where it's just like, I know you've lived on this earth for a very long time, but you need to understand that there are people being affected by your inaction. So you're going to have to do something about that. Sorry.
Like, the radicalization of Mary is very, very good.
That pays off in the next movie so well.
There's a reason he joins the resistance, is all I'm saying.
Yes.
He also, just next movie and only next movie, I watched Return of the King today. He has so much chemistry with Éowyn, and he and Éowyn should have ended up together, and Éowyn and Faramir in the movies makes no sense.
No.
She should have ended up with Mary in the Jackson movies. I will fight and die on this hill.
They could have had weird, short, tall babies.
Out of fear that it won't come up next week, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Like that jump cut to the pointless scene of Éowyn looking out the window and then Faramir there like, given the eyes, I'm like, guys,
cut it out.
The actors hated that scene because they kept saying in the commentary, they're like, if we're good enough to flirt, like even if we're hurt, we should be at the battle.
Mm-hmm.
And like, yeah, even if Faramir's hurt, if he's good enough to flirt and give Éowyn a sponge bath, he's good enough to try and wield a sword. Return of the King. I'm sorry. But,
I appreciate the strides they made in The Hobbit to give us a lovely size differential relationship there with an elf and a dwarf.
Yeah.
It sort of makes up. But yeah, I loved everything that happened with them in the next one. But Marion Treebeard stuff I like.
Yes.
I like the Battle of
absolutely.
Helm's Deep. I'm a sucker for big bombastic battles. Like, yeah, I love so much about Attack of the Clones. The last 15 minutes are some of the best, though. Like, you know, when you throw a bunch of cool stuff at me, I'm gonna love it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're making a comparison. I thought you thought that we were talking about Attack of the
No,
Clones for a
yeah,
second.
it's just that of like I love so much about this leading up to the big battle climax, but the big battle climax is so fun.
Yes, and climax it does.
Oh yeah, I like and I love you know, I what I assume is a lot of attention to what would be like legit tactics and whatnot. It feels like this is a real siege, if that makes sense. It feels like I'm seeing what would have taken place. It doesn't feel like you know, like I remember watching my first Pedro Pascal movie, the one with the Great Wall, and it's just like
that was your first.
Yeah, sorry.
Wow.
It's a lot of fun. It's also super ridiculous. It's one of the, you want to talk about people getting mad about like ship wheels and everything. Like there were so many things in feudal Japan that should not have been there. And it's just one of those like, turn off your brain and enjoy. This felt like, no, it's like we had someone come in and advise or whatnot. Or maybe Tolkien was just that brilliant when writing it.
All of the Uruk-hai having like those big spears, like what would you give foot soldiers? Spears, because it takes zero experience to know how to use.
Exactly.
You can shove it in a farmer's hand and they know how to use it. And so these Uruk-hai who were born yesterday, they're big and strong, but like they're like golems, like they were just created.
Yeah.
Like give them a bunch of spears and the tension of the cavalry charge, like horse beats man, spear beats horse. So like Eomer is screwed and you're watching this big cavalry charge down this hill and you're like, oh my goodness, they're going to all get skewered. All of these Uruk-hai have these giant pikes. And then Gandalf hits the light spell and they all recoil at the last second. And it's just so good.
It's so cool.
And that's my thing with like the stages of it. It's not just, you know, the initial attack. There's so many levels to where almost like if you're starting to settle in and lose tension, oh, here's the next part. Oh, and then we're moving to this section of the battle. And, you know, it just felt like it was constantly moving and constantly engaging, which I really like.
Talking about historical accuracies, Boop, the TMNT Uruk-hai.
Wait.
Do you not know about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Uruk-hai?
I do not know about what? Please regale me. I would love to know.
The ladders going up, that happens at the beginning of the battle, but the bigger ladders, once they've retreated into the Hornburg, they're like at the next defense position, the bigger part of the castle, they have these scorpions shooting bolts up and then like a pulley system. Legolas shoots an arrow and breaks the chain. And as the ladder is going down, one of the Uruk-hai goes, Cowabunga!
No!
What?
And
how did I not know about that?
You will never not hear it now. You are cursed with this knowledge.
We are now all going to leave this podcast and watch Two Towers to confirm this. Cowabunga! Oh my god!
Because I know exactly what he's talking about, but I don't remember hearing that. But now it's like, gotta go hear it.
Yep,
that's incredible.
It is there.
Oh my god!
You'll never unhear it. You're cursed.
Oh, well,
that's like
awesome.
a fun curse.
Yeah,
it's great. It makes me laugh every time.
Of the curses on me at my current state in life, that's the best one so far.
I forgot one. Background Legolas. That is also a fantastic thread throughout this entire trilogy in general. But the Two Towers.
Explain.
Have you never just watched the Legolas?
No.
While watching
making facial expressions the whole time.
He is acting his Orlando Bloom off. Like, it is incredible. But it's all in the background. He's just...
Luke Evans is such a great actor. I'm just kidding.
He
I'm
was
kidding.
great as Gaston. Yes,
He was great as Gaston.
he was the best part of that movie.
I do love there's quite a few background actors that crack me up. There's one freaking Rohirrim when the elves show up. He has a huge smile on his face. He's just like, look, there's elves. Oh, and like he makes me laugh every time.
Aw.
And then when Orlando Bloom or Legolas and Aragorn are having their fight and they're arguing in Elvish, and then Aragorn yells, "Then I shall die as one of them." There's a dude in the background who just kind of like shakes his head. Just like, what?
I don't understand them, but I feel that one. That's amazing. That's one of the things that's great about like.
It's like background BT battle droids.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Go watch Attack of the Clones, The Phantom Menace very closely and look for the battle droid
different Star Wars
washing
movies.
a tank.
Yeah.
And you'll never not see him. But that's the thing, I mean, the endless times that I've watched that movie since 1999, like I look forward to spending more times with these movies and rewatching and watching the commentaries and like all of like experiencing that now and finding those things in the background and also learning more. Like that's one of the things I've looked forward to being able to finally talk about these. Like obviously Boop and I have talked. I've talked to my brother-in-law endlessly for help and information.
Shout out to Justin.
But getting to talk about these things that I feel like I'm just now catching up to is really nice and interesting. And I hope to only grow to love them more and see them from different points of views and see all of the little things that I missed on the initial run. Because I definitely just got the like crash course in Lord of the Rings so far. So yeah, lots of fun.
I will say Lord of the Rings makes Stranger Things better.
Really?
It's still pretty good, but there's
you
a
just
lot of
find
references.
anything to continue to make me want to watch.
I need you to get to season 3.
So
Steve
update
Harrington.
to the podcast. If you don't follow our Twitter, I have started Stranger Things.
We watched like 3 episodes the other night.
So there you go.
No spoilers.
Will
please.
I continue it?
He doesn't know about Bob.
Probably. Who's Bob?
Yes.
I'm concerned now.
Sean Astin.
Yeah.
Oh, I do know. I mean, I know he's in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's in
He's
it.
great. He's the best guy.
He's the best character in season 2 of Stranger
I don't
Things.
trust any of you. Well, safe to say we'll be talking about Stranger Things at some point on the podcast.
Yeah.
But as far as talking about Lord of the Rings, couldn't ask for a better panel of friends. Thank you all for joining us for another entry into our 3-parter, the adventure that is the Lord of the Rings marathon here at Nerd Herder. We appreciate it. Any updates to the podcast? Because all of you are podcast people as well.
Yes.
Davor, starting with you, do you have anything exciting coming up you want to let the folks know about at home? Yeah, so you can listen to A Larger View of the Force, which is a Star Wars podcast, pretty much wherever you get your podcasts. I recently, not too long ago, became part of the Clashing Sabers team, so you can catch me over there on their main show, talking Star Wars, as well as on my own show. So yeah, those are the main updates. Awesome stuff. Clashing with Sabers, good company. That's a very exciting little change there, and so that's awesome. So 2 podcasts there to check out, really. Michael, what's happening with the Disney dog? You got any new stuff coming out soon? I was talking to somebody about this. I think I've been on your show 3 times since I put out a podcast with high school, college volleyball season, everything I'm involved in. It's just been crazy busy. Sure. And then I'm looking at sort of doing some changes with my podcast, maybe relaunching some things. I think I've talked to you about music, things like that. With me starting to be a contractor for MVP, I'm having to make some changes with my podcast. So hopefully by the first of the year, it'll be so, because it's Christmas now. I mean, Oh yeah. Nothing's happening at Christmas. I don't know how he does 2 podcasts, because I struggle with one.
So
lots of caffeine, and yeah, that's about it.
Yeah. Having something to say.
Yeah.
I do
And wanting to
three.
say it very loudly.
Absolutely.
You do.
you
You-
do 3.
I'm
a
on 3
podcast.
podcasts. I'm
Czar.
recording the next 4 days in a row.
We-
What?
Andy's our little
Anyway,
celebrity.
I'm gonna plug Viking Blood because I've been drinking this whole time and I'm good and drunk at this point.
Yay.
I don't know if you want to listen to any of my stuff. That's my Twitter. I do 3 shows on my own, and then I guest on a bunch of stuff. I recorded with Octo Radio recently, so that should be coming out soon. Happy birthday, Alden Diaz.
Yes.
Catch
Red
that
boy.
episode. It's a banger. And then, like I said, there's my Twitter handle at a One Hat Town. I retweet every show I'm on, so follow me there. And watch Lord of the Rings. It's really good.
Absolutely, it is.
Let it be gay.
And at the end of the day, we appreciate everybody listening,
I appreciate you.
watching. I appreciate you. I appreciate Boba mostly, although he's always slowly working himself more and more into the episode. Especially appreciate our patrons. The people who
Ooh, you
make
paid for
questionable
this.
decisions with their money. Thank you guys for supporting us. You pay for StreamYard, and we appreciate that because we get to have awesome people like this hang out with us for nearly 2 hours. So
Yes.
we leave it at that for this week. Next week, we're back with the obvious next entry, Return of the King.
Return of the guy.
Little
Ooh, he's
guys
back.
attacking guys in armor in the woods. They
There's
blend
a horse.
together so well. But yes, finishing out this lovely adventure into Middle Earth on the podcast with none other than Alden Diaz. We've got Nikki Kumar joining, and
Love Nikki.
our friend and also contender for the most views or most guest spots, Kev,
That's true.
joining us. So
That's fine. I thought it was going to
Kev's
be Michael,
fine.
and I was going to flip this table.
No. I can't wait to get you and Michael on together one day. It's going to be shenanigans. And
It will be.
until next week,
Stay.
stay.
Sit,
Everybody stay.
Stay.
Good boys.
Hello! I was wondering if I might trouble you for a cup of strong black coffee, and in the process engage you with an anecdote of no small amusement.